Today on the Big 3 and 30, Clemson knocks North Carolina out of the ACC tournament.
Now 24-8 on the season. They fall to 5-3 without Caleb Wilson in the lineup.
Iowa State dominates Texas Tech in the Big 12 tourney.
I did not expect this game to be so one-sided.
And Ohio State beats Iowa in the Big 10 tournament.
Another game that played out like so many of them have throughout the course of this season.
This is the Big 3 and 30 College, the three biggest stories on campus from our local experts at the Locked On Podcast Network. We bring you the real story, why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 30 minutes. The Big 3 and 30 College starts now. Thank you for making the Big 3 and 30 your first listen of the day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com and win $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. North Carolina has secured a spot in the NCAA tournament, but the Tar Heels got bounced early in the ACC tournament with a quarterfinal loss to Clemson. Isaac Shade recaps that loss on Locked On Tar Heels.
Carolina falls to Clemson in the ACC quarterfinals, 80-79. It was another bad beat in this series, the second in the past 10 days. I'll explain that in just a second because, man, if you had Clemson in this one, I hate it for you. Carolina now 24-8 on the season. They fall to 5-3 without Caleb Wilson in the lineup. At Ken Palm, they actually go up from 31st to 30th. And now we sit and wait for Selection Sunday. And of course, this is going to be a therapy session. Definitely not a party, definitely a therapy session. But, you know, as a good therapist, how about this? I got a silver lining for you. Now you don't have to stay up as late tomorrow. You can go to bed, go on a date. You don't have to stay up till, 12:20 Eastern, 11:20 my time in Central. You're all good. There's your therapy, free of charge, right? Also, coming up this weekend, starting this weekend, and for each of the next several weekends, I'm going to be back on Amazon Fire TV's Bracket Breakdown, covering all your March Madness needs. It starts Selection Sunday. It'll go through each of those. It'll be myself, my co-host on Locked On College Basketball, Andy Patton. UNC National Champion Jesse Hawley will be on the desk with us. Butler Bulldog and NBA All-Star Gordon Hayward will be with us, and Kylan Mills, who's a host for Big Ten Network and a whole bunch of stuff, calls Bulls games sometimes. She's going to be the host of it all. It's going to be great. Tune in. It's on Amazon Fire TVs. Okay, here's what we do on these live postcasts. We're going to unpack this game, every brutal detail of it. Big picture, small picture. We'll get to your comments and questions, and I'm sure there's a lot of fire Hubert Davis and all of that because every loss has that. And I don't say that as though it shouldn't be considered. I'm just saying it's like par for the course. That's what always comes up immediately. Okay, I said this was a bad beat, a second straight one in the series. Here's why. In the game that was in Chapel Hill last week at the Dean Dome, I forget what it was, the actual line, the final line, but that layup that Dylan Hunter had that he missed right at the end would have covered, but it didn't. And so Carolina covers. So anybody who had Clemson bad beat in this one, I think the line ended at Clemson -1.5 some places, Clemson -2 some places. Well, with 3:30 to go, the Tigers are up 15. And if you got the Tigers, you're feeling pretty good about where you're at. And then Carolina just starts hitting 3 after 3 after 3 after 3. I haven't even gone and counted how many it was yet. We should do that in real time altogether here. But so Carolina gets it to within 1, and then nobody else scores, and that's it. So if you had Clemson, second straight bad beat, I hate it for you. It really was. My wife, Maggie, was sitting on the couch with me as we watched this finish off, and she was like, it's one of those where it's just like, just don't even come back. You know, it's don't get the hopes up, whatever it is. Now, I think there is something to be said for the fight that's in the Tar Heels. We'll talk about that in a second, but let's just talk about the logistics of the end there. Typically, Coach Davis has saved the timeout there. Typically, you want a timeout there on that very last free throw. Clemson misses the first one, and so because of that, they call a timeout to discuss what to do. You either try to make it or you intentionally miss it. it was absolutely the right call by Clemson to purposefully miss that final free throw. Let me explain why. If Clemson makes that free throw, they're up by 2, 81-79. It gives Carolina, who doesn't have a timeout, the opportunity to stop the clock, get out of bounds, and make an entry pass, hopefully, into the front court for a shot at a better shot. However, with Clemson intentionally missing and Carolina not having any timeouts, here's what happens. Is Jaron Stevenson has to get the ball, doesn't really even have time to make a pass, so he's got to take a couple dribbles and launch, and that's all you can do. So Clemson absolutely made the right decision there. That said, I haven't gone back and timed it. I haven't gone back and slow-moed it. I'm almost positive Jaron could have gotten at least one more dribble, maybe 2. But would you or I have done any better in that situation? Absolutely not. But, if we're assessing the situation, Jaron could have taken another dribble or 2. But it's the situation you put yourselves in, and beggars can't be choosers in that moment, right? And so ultimately, it's a great push by Carolina. I mean, crazy stuff, the way they were just knocking down threes. But it's too little too late. It's last year all over again, where Carolina would dig themselves into a massive pit, a massive hole, and then not be able to work all the way back. They'd come back really close and then couldn't make a shot right at the end, or didn't have time to make a shot right at the end, whatever it was. And that's what happened in this one. Just not enough time to get it off to make it happen on that last one. I am curious to see how many threes Carolina made there at the end. So Carolina, again, was down by, 15 with 3:30 to go. And in the final 2:30 of this game, Carolina hit 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 threes. Holy smokes. So Carolina scored in the final 2:39. Carolina scored 1, 2, 3, 4, 19 points in the final 2:40. That's crazy. So you had a Derek Dixon 3, a Derek Dixon 3, a Henry Vasar 3, a Henry Vasar 3, and a Derek Dixon 3. So that was all Derek and Henry. My goodness. With the Seth Trimble layup mixed in. Remember, Jaron Stevenson and Derek Dixon collided. And it was almost one of those plays like in football where you have a dude run over to the sideline and start barking like a dog. So everybody looks at him and then somebody can make a play. It was like, Seth's like, oh no, that stinks. Layup, right? And so good for Seth for just staying locked in to what needed to happen there. That was really great from him. But again, too little, too late from Carolina. They were not locked in early enough. They weren't tough early enough. They didn't do the things necessary to run good enough offense or defense to get what they needed. And so again, you can build on what just happened at the end of this game. But boy, the bigger takeaway has to be the complete no-show. What did I say? Final 240. So the 37-20 before that. And sure, I know Carolina got out of the gate and had a lead, but Clemson just systematically worked their way back, took the lead, and Carolina was never able to get fully back in it. In totality, Clemson led 31-01, Carolina led 7-44. And so it's just like, look, all the props to Clemson. They came out. They were the aggressors. They were the tougher team. We're talking on the broadcast. Coach Brownell was very upset with their lack of defensive fortitude early in the game. But he got them locked in, and then they locked in and didn't let up until Carolina was just able to start knocking down some threes late. And I mean, so you got to give the props to Clemson, who just spread out like a whole bunch of, there was not one dude. They had 6 guys in double figures, led by Nick Davidson's 17 points, 4 of 4 from 3. I mean, that's the second straight time playing Clemson where you've just let a big dude go off. It was Welling, the guy that was missing with, which, by the way, let's stop and say, man, hate that for Welling. Get well soon. There's too many injuries in college basketball this year. It's insanity. But, Carolina keeps letting Clemson big guys just rain threes. And so there's that. Now, again, I do want to ask the question, can you build on what happened? Because that is a legitimate thing too. Again, while the bigger takeaway is the majority of the game, you do have to consider what can you learn about what happened at the end. Carolina played with better urgency. Carolina played with a sense of finality of, oh my, we're done in this tournament if we don't do something here. And so they did something, but again, too little, too late. And now, because of that, you're in a situation where A, you don't get another crack at Duke. B, you didn't get this extra quad one win. C, now Seth Trimble might have one game left in his collegiate career, depending on if you can win or not next Thursday or Friday, whenever it is Carolina plays their first round game. And it's tough because what Carolina needed to do and to be in this game was to come out after getting embarrassed at Duke, embarrassed at Cameron on Saturday night. And Molly McGrath even said it on the broadcast. I talked to Henry Vasar before the game. He said, they were a revenge-minded team. They wanted to get that. Well, they sure didn't play like it. Like, if you're a revenge-minded team, man, go out and do absolute work. But now you have that Duke performance and this performance back-to-back. And if I'm the selection committee, I know what your entire resume is, but I'm looking at these two recent games. I'm like, boy, I thought maybe they had something figured out without Caleb Wilson, but it appears to me that they do not, because this Carolina offense was woeful for the vast majority of this game without Caleb Wilson.
College basketball is nonstop. Big games, tight spreads, momentum swings every single night. From early tip-offs to late-night West Coast shootouts, there's always action on the board. And now FanDuel is giving you a way to turn that energy into even bigger potential wins with a college basketball parlay profit boost. You can build any college hoops parlay you want. Rivalry games, ranked matchups, conference championship games. You can mix spreads, totals, and player props to match what you see on the slate. Then you apply that profit boost and instantly bump up that potential payout. Go safe, go bold, ride with the team you've been following all season. It's your parlay, your style now with more upside. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com. FanDuel, play your game.
Welcome back to the Big 3 and 30. Iowa State faced off against Texas Tech in the Big 12 tournament and dominated the Red Raiders in a top 10 matchup. Nick Maravitz recaps the win on Locked On Cyclones.
Iowa State versus Texas Tech. I did not expect this game to be so one-sided. Now, the first 10-ish minutes were not, okay? Obviously, Texas Tech took a relatively large lead early, 15-5, 17-5 was the largest lead there with in the first 6 minutes of the game. And then Iowa State figured it out. And I thought they played from that point on maybe one of their best games because it was against Texas Tech. Texas Tech, obviously one of the better teams in the Big 12 in the country. And when you look at Iowa State, they dominated Kansas State. They dominated, insert whoever. None of those teams were really on the same caliber other than maybe Kansas, I guess, would be the only other argument you can make. And even they look shaky at times. But Iowa State did not play well in the first few minutes. And I said Iowa State's going to have to win this game in the first 6 minutes, and then they'll just hold serve, right? They'll just keep Texas Tech at bay, kind of match them run for run, whatever it ends up being. And that is actually the exact opposite of how this game went. Iowa State got down early in the first literally 6 minutes, down double digits, and they came their way back into this game, crawled their way back, and ended up taking a lead at halftime and then only expanding that lead in the second half. What an incredible game from Iowa State as a team. And then as we dive into the box score here, really, really solid showing all around. Not quite as strong, I would say, as the Arizona State game, but certainly really, really all around solid. Blake Buchanan had 9. Milan had 5. Killian Torrey had 2. Joshua Jefferson had 18. And Taman Lipsey with 20. The hometown hero showing up big time for Iowa State in this tournament. But let's go back to Joshua Jefferson, who had 18 points, 13 rebounds, and 6 assists, back-to-back double-doubles for the big man, playing like his life depends on it at this point, honestly. I will say this, okay? I have been relatively vocal about my disappointment for Joshua Jefferson at times, and I don't know if that's a hot take. I haven't gotten any pushback, which has been honestly surprising. But I've also at the exact same time commended him for what he's been able to do. Right now, what he's doing is basically playing all of the good parts with relatively minimal setbacks. Okay. Still had 4 turnovers in this one. That's not nothing. All right. I'm not going to act like he's playing the best games of his life right now. A++ S tier, unbelievable, no mistake games. I'm not saying that, but 12 defensive rebounds. I mean, Iowa State won this rebounding battle by 10. All right, just to put that into perspective there. No other Iowa State player had more than 3 defensive rebounds. So he had 4 times the next leading defensive rebounder, which was Jamarian Bateman. Jamarian Bateman had 3. Joshua Jefferson had 12. All of our other starters had 2, or Iowa State's other starters had 2. And then there was, other than Bateman coming off the bench, 4 other rebounds defensively that came off the bench. He was one of only 4 players with an offensive rebound. Nate Heise had 3. Dominicus Plata had 1. Buchanan had 1. And then Jefferson with the other one out of the 7 that Iowa State was able to grab. And then obviously Nate Heise with only 2 points, those 3 offensive rebounds. That's 3 second chance opportunities for Iowa State. And I got looking into the team stats, as we always do, because we always say if Iowa State wins the turnover battle, if Iowa State wins the rebounding battle, they're going to win this game. Iowa State did shoot well in this game, 54% from the floor, 39% from the three-point line, Free throws, not good again. Not good again. Doesn't matter when you win by 22, but they shot 57%. Not good. Cannot have that. Doesn't seem like it's going to get fixed. I know that me talking about it is not going to change it, but that's just that's not good. I mean, let's get back to the positives here. Iowa State won the rebounding battle 39-29, and the turnover battle, it was a tie, 10-10. So Iowa State did their job. They came out and they played their hearts out on that glass floor. Thoughts and prayers to Christian Anderson. That's just, like I said, if you want to learn more about my thoughts on the glass court and the switch over to hardwood, hit subscribe and be sure to check out for that. Look out for that. But Iowa State, really turned up the defensive intensity in this one. And I actually pulled up KenPom just because I was curious. And I guess I wasn't looking between the Arizona State game and this Texas Tech game. But I do know that since the end of the regular season, Iowa State has moved up considerably in defensive efficiency rating. They are now number 4 in the country with 90.9 as their defensive efficiency rating. Incredible stuff. Not only through Arizona State, who, let's be honest, I mean, was that the most impressive? Like, you're playing Arizona State. You held them to 42. You could have held them to 10 points in the first half. That in and of itself is incredible. But if Iowa State played my, whatever, I think it was a D-League intramural team, and they held us to 6 points in the first half, would you say, wow, this team's really good? And I'm not saying that Arizona State is a D-level intramural team. I'm not saying that directly. I'm just saying that there are levels, and I think Iowa State is on a different level than Arizona State. Texas Tech, I would argue, much closer to the level of Iowa State, and they held them to 53. That's incredible. I think Texas Tech was averaging like 80-something points this season, held to 53. That was a solid defensive showing. 33-36, your halftime score. And then in the second half, Iowa State allowed 20. I'm going to be honest, okay? And I don't want to fall back into this trap because this has been Iowa State in the past. If Iowa State allows 20 points a half, Iowa State's going to win a lot of games. However, listen to me when I say this, they need to score, okay? And they did in this one. They scored 75, and they did against Arizona State, scored, 91. But this defense could take Iowa State a long ways, okay? And when you talk about defense travels, well, we're kind of seeing that right now. Now, of course, we will get to the Hilton South allegations, to the conversations about, playing in Kansas City before today's show is over. And I understand that. But at the same time, how well did Iowa State play at the Players era? Is that Hilton South? I don't know. Not to my knowledge. I don't think it is. Unless maybe I'm behind on the times. Regardless, Iowa State held Texas Tech to 34% from the field, 31% from three. And you might think, oh, Texas Tech had an off day. They had a tough time getting any quality looks, anything as far as they struggled to move the ball around. Iowa State had 8 steals in this one, 14 assists on 30 shots, well, on the offensive side of the ball for Iowa State. But Texas Tech, they really did have a very tough time getting a good look, which is going to result in a lower percentage as far as field goal or 3-point shot percentage. So, yeah, this Iowa State team is clicking on all cylinders right now, and there's a lot to be excited about. But my favorite thing, I think, is the defensive side of the ball. They look incredible. Intensity is there. They are smothering everyone, and they're forcing either bad passes or they're extending out, offensive possessions to where they're having to take last-second shot clock shots. They are doing it right now. Now, of course, you never know what your next opponent is going to bring and how they're going to handle your defensive pressure. But one of the things they always throw out on the broadcast is, oh, you can game plan for this pressure all you want, Jim, but once you get really into the game and you feel the pressure, it's a whole different experience. Yeah, I get that. Okay. And I do think that a bit of that plays into this. Obviously, Iowa State played Texas Tech, has played Arizona State before, has played Arizona before. So they have felt that pressure. This isn't going to come out of nowhere for these teams. And it's obviously been successful through the first 2 rounds. We'll see how it squares out, how it pans out, against Arizona.
College basketball is nonstop. Big games, tight spreads, momentum swings every single night. From early tip-offs to late-night West Coast shootouts, there's always action on the board. And now FanDuel is giving you a way to turn that energy into even bigger potential wins with a college basketball parlay profit boost. You can build any college hoops parlay you want. Rivalry games, ranked matchups, conference championship games. You can mix spreads, totals, and player props to match what you see on the slate. Then you apply that profit boost and instantly bump up that potential payout. Go safe, go bold, ride with the team you've been following all season. It's your parlay, your style now with more upside. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com. FanDuel, play your game.
Welcome back to the Big 3 and 30 College. The Iowa Hawkeyes believe they've done enough to make the NCAA tournament, but they got knocked out of the Big 10 tournament with a loss to Ohio State Thursday. Trent Condon looks ahead to Selection Sunday on Locked On Hawkeyes.
We're going to kick things off talking about the Hawkeye men as they fall in the Big Ten tournament to Ohio State 72-69. We're also going to talk a little bit about Ben McCollum and some interesting comments that he made after the game, including what it's going to take to go from good to great with this Iowa basketball program. But we begin with the here and now and what we saw on the hardwood, another game that played out like so many of them have throughout the course of this season. Iowa in the second half, down double digits, down by 16 to the Buckeyes. They didn't quit. They didn't give up and had opportunities late in the game. I know for a lot of us, that is initially certainly where the angst is going to go and the frustration of what happened in the final moments of that basketball game. And a lot of the arrows right now being pointed at Brendan Hassan, the shot that he took from the corner, it clanged off the top of the backboard, went out of bounds. Iowa got another opportunity. And as Isaiah Howard launched that shot, and as it was going through, thinking, this thing's got a shot. This thing might fall in. Alas, it doesn't hit off the back iron, off the backboard. Thought maybe he was going to bank the thing in, but regardless, it goes. Karam's off. There is no overtime. Iowa falls by 3, 72-69. An interesting one. And as I mentioned, this is a game that we've seen play out a bunch of different times. Though they got out to a 12-6 lead, it was still a slow start overall for the offense. But if you would have told me leading into this one that I was going to shoot 50% from the floor, 22 of 44, they're going to go 10 of 21 from the three-point line, going to go 15 of 19 from the free throw line, only going to turn it over 10 times, have 16 assists in the game, I would have told you I was going to win. That was not the case, though. In a game that was a grinder, that only had 58 possessions, Iowa was good enough on the offensive end, even with the misses late in the game. Again, it was the defense out of this squad. And though this is not an awful defensive team, I think sometimes the perception for some people gets lost to what they are. Because they play such a slow pace. And this is one of the slowest paced teams in the country, what Iowa does game in and game out. When you look at tempo numbers, when you look at those kind of things, this is an incredibly slow team. And because of that, you're not going to have as many possessions, and your points per game is going to be down because of the style of play that they're going to have. It doesn't paint the full picture. Now, this team is better defensively than what we saw during most of the Fran McCaffrey era. They're ranked currently 33rd at Bart Torvik in defensive efficiency, meaning, yes, this is a good defensive team, but it's not an elite one. It's not a great one. And we continue to see guys that can get to the rim, guys that can put their head down, like Bruce Thornton. They're going to have trouble with those kind of guys. Bynum had some moments. We even saw some different players. And really the big one in the first half was Christoph Tilley. And we talked about that leading into the game. Why I felt this game was going to look a whole lot different than what we saw in Iowa City is having the 7-foot big man out there in Tilley for the Buckeyes. And you saw that show up in the first half. I was starting to get into foul trouble. We saw Trevin Urach get thrown out there for a couple of minutes in that one. It was something that completely changed the way the Buckeyes are. Tilley's a guy that can step out. He can make a shot, though he didn't even attempt a three-pointer. He was giving Iowa problems, really good in the pocket, made good decisions, and made it tough on the Hawkeyes early on in this game when they battled back after Iowa jumped out to that 6-point lead. Tilley was a big reason for it. And then in the second half, it was Bruce Thornton. And after the performance that Iowa had defensively, specifically Cale Combs, and what he was able to do that first time against Thornton, you knew you're going to be able to replicate that. You knew that Diebler was going to come up with something different. You definitely saw that at different times as they kind of zigged to Iowa zag and were able to get Thornton going. And when he gets going, he's just incredibly difficult to stop. He is a absolute high-level scorer, can do it a bunch of different ways, and you definitely saw that show up on that one. Iowa continually, without a rim protector, without that guy back behind, that is going to be an issue for the squad, and we've seen it happen time in and time out throughout the course of the season. When they go up against athletic guards, it is a problem for this squad. Staying in front of them, and then on top of that, being able to get stops on the end. And you look at the numbers for Ohio State, they were great. They were great at the rim throughout the course of this one. They finished 15 of 19 at the rim. When you don't have a shot blocker in the middle, you don't have that 7-foot presence there defensively, these are the things that are going to happen. Just not good enough on the defensive end. Ohio State, remember, is also playing at a high level. This is a Buckeye team playing very well, and it's another one, woulda, shoulda, coulda, almost there, but you can't get over the hump. Bennett Sturt's the only player in double figures scoring. He finished with 17, left the game for a little bit as he got kneed up on the upper thigh, groin area, wherever that was that he took it. Looked like to be in some pain. Still played 39 minutes in the game, though, overall for the Hawkeyes. Goes 6-11 from the floor, 2 of 5 from the three-point line. Had an incredibly difficult three-pointer he hit early in the ball game. 4 assists in the game against 3 turnovers as Iowa overall turned it over 10 times. A couple other guys to spotlight. And during the first half, Alvaro Fulgaris was playing terribly. And again, we talk about the inconsistency that we've seen from Fulgaris this year. That has been a huge piece. It just, you never know. Knocked down a couple of three-pointers as I was roaring back. Thought he defended hard. So got some tough rebounds in there. Had 3 assists. Those are the kind of things you need to see from Fulgaris. But we only got it for a half. And I think that's also a reason we saw Urach, because there's a couple fouls on Maniau. There's a couple of fouls, I think, on Banks in the first half. And that was a reason that it went that direction. And they decided to go out there with Urach, who had a look from the top of the key. I'm fine with Trevin Urach shooting that shot. This is a guy that I called, 30 of his games in high school, 25, 30 games, something like that at West Des Moines Valley. I know the skill set. You saw it, a couple of assists in the game too. Defensively also. That's the thing that's going to have to change for him. He just has to get quicker. The footwork has to be better. He needs to be quicker, even with the size that he has, to be able to compete game in and game out at the Big Ten level. Again, the substitution patterns were head-scratching. Brendan Hassan came in for a couple minutes in the first half, fine, but played 10 minutes overall, including 8 in the second half. Just struggled to wrap your mind around it. He's in there, gets the final shot in the corner before Howard got the final shot, but we know what we're talking about there. The substitution patterns just leave you scratching your head. After the performance that we saw from Cale Combs the first time in that first meeting against Ohio State against Thornton, certainly wasn't that case in this one. How about just 5 shots also for Cooper Koch? And now you're seeing, after he's starting to heat up from the three-point line, teams are becoming much more proficient. They're going to be guarding him. He's going to be one of those guys, along with Bennett Sturts, towards the top of the scouting report, one of those guys that they're going to key in on, because Manyao's not that guy that's going to go out. He'll get you the garbage buckets, and he'll get an offensive stick back and be able to do some things on the turn, on the screen and roll. He can do those things, but he's not a back to the basket scorer. He's not somebody that you throw it into the post. Tavion Banks, good pull-up game, good from the mid-range, but not a guy that's consistently going to be able to beat you as a scorer. So because of that, Cooper Koch, he's going to get more attention. And when you get more attention, you're going to have to do it different ways, because they're not going to allow you just to chuck up 3-pointers like he's been able to do against a couple of teams here recently. That's going to change also. Like at times what we saw from Isaiah Howard, continue just to like his game. The shot hit a 3-pointer in the game. Tate Sage, I thought, gave him a couple of good minutes also when he was in there. Overall, again, it comes down offensively. They were fine, just couldn't get the stops that they needed in this basketball game, and that's where the frustration lies with this team.
That's all for today's Big 3 and 30 College. If you follow pro basketball or football, the Big 3 and 30 has shows for the biggest news in the NBA and NFL going up every weekday just like this one. Just search the Big 3 and 30 NBA or the Big 3 and 30 NFL wherever you're listening or watching now. Thanks again for tuning in to the Big 3 and 30 College.